We're going to digress a little bit from the usual content on this podcast to talk about DeepSeek. DeepSeek is a new artificial intelligence model released by a relatively small Chinese company in the last week. And it's not an exaggeration to say it's shaken the foundations of the entire global economy. We saw the single largest drop in market capitalization in a stock in American history. NVIDIA, an American artificial intelligence company, lost $500 billion, $500 billion of market value. The stock market as a whole in the United States lost over $1 trillion. $1 trillion disappeared. That's a significant percentage of the entire American economy, poof, in one moment. And it's all because of a tiny little startup in China called DeepSeek. And you might be wondering, why the hell are you talking about this, Wayne? Well, partly because I'm very interested in AI and actually have a background in data science that I would like to come back to at some point. And that has actually informed my activism. I was doing a PhD in economics many, many years ago. But I actually think there's some pretty interesting parallels between why DeepSeek is dominating the global AI scene and how vegans can dominate factory farms. But before I jump into that, and I know it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think if you follow through and listen to this entire podcast, you'll agree with me. The parallels are kind of interesting and almost a little eerie. But let me just explain what exactly happened. So DeepSeek, like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Llama, is what's called a foundational artificial intelligence model. It's an artificial intelligence model that is intended to be basically able to answer any of your questions. And when it was released, people quickly realized it was astonishingly good. In fact, it beats ChatGPT on a number of tasks, including the most difficult mathematical and coding tasks. So to the extent DeepSeek or any AI is being used for complex computational or reasoning tasks, turns out DeepSeek is doing better than the best models in the United States. But what really, really shook things up was when people realized how much money they actually spent on building this model. It was about $5 million. For context, when Microsoft and OpenAI release a new model of ChatGPT, we're talking about many, many billions of dollars typically. When Facebook announced that it's training a new artificial intelligence model, Llama 4.0, they said they were using potentially tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, including 100,000 top-line GPUs. GPUs are these AI chips that are used to train the models, and they're in extremely short supply, and they're extremely expensive. And then we're going to use 100,000 of them. And not only did DeepSeek drop and deliver a performance better than the US AI companies, but it was doing so after spending $5 million on just 2,000 GPUs. 2,000 compared to 100,000 for Facebook's latest model. The other thing that's really interesting about DeepSeek is that it did so pretty much completely under the radar. No one saw this company. No one thought that this was going to explode and change the face of the global economy, which is part of the reason there was such a sudden shift in American stock markets, because this was new information. And so basically the entire country, oh, and I forgot to add too, it's not only that they're only using 2,000 of these chips that typically, again, a company like Facebook or Microsoft or Google is using tens of thousands, and Facebook's most recent model is going to take 100,000. But they're using crippled versions of the chips. Because of AI export regulations, China can't get the best world-class artificial intelligence chips. So this Chinese company using 1,000, 2,000 chips that are crippled is beating American companies that are using 10 or 100 times as many chips that are world-class chips. So how did this happen? Why is DeepSeek able to do things? Why is DeepSeek able to innovate and reach conclusions and answers and innovations that the American companies aren't able to do? I think there are three primary reasons that I've been reading a lot about this. And I think there are three primary reasons DeepSeek has been able to dominate the AI companies in the United States. And again, they relate a lot to how vegans and animal rights activists have an advantage over factory farming and animal agriculture. And those three reasons are transparency, diversity, and purpose. So let's talk about each of these. Transparency. So DeepSeek is unusual in today's world in that it is completely open about everything it does. And you might think, really, a Chinese company is open? It's interesting, right? They're completely transparent. So, for example, you can actually just go to DeepSeek's GitHub. GitHub is this hub for source code, for code that you'd like to share with the world. And you can download the entire model. You can just download DeepSeek. You don't even have to rely on the company to run artificial intelligence, because if you have the computational ability to do what's called inference, in other words, just, take tokens into the model and pump tokens out, in other words, language into the model, language out, you can actually run it on your own computer. Well, not your own computer, but a similar computer to what DeepSeek has. In other words, they're sharing everything they have with everyone in the world, and they're allowing everyone in the world to see exactly what they did. In fact, they openly published not just their source code, but in a number of papers described the exact techniques they used to reach the results they reached. So contrast this with the American AI companies. Contrary to the name of the company, OpenAI is actually very closed. You cannot see the model. You can't download ChatGPT. You can't even really see exactly what they're doing. So for example, the most recent model by ChatGPT, o1, uses reasoning. And a lot of people are guessing what it's doing because it seems to be stalling. And if you go on ChatGPT, it'll actually described in this prompt, basically, what it might be doing. But it's completely unclear what's under the cover. No one understands other than the engineers at OpenAI. And this has been the case in the US AI industry for most of the last couple of years. Ever since basically ChatGPT 3.0 dropped, there's been a race to the bottom in terms of secrecy. Now, all the AI companies claim, it's because our technology is too powerful. If we deliver it into the wrong hands, it could create a bioweapon, or people could use ChatGPT to create misinformation or disinformation on the internet. But the reality is most of these companies are just trying to maintain profit. They don't want other companies in the world to take advantage of their IP. And also, they don't want to be scrutinized. They would like to keep confidential exactly what they're doing because they don't see the value of opening up what they're doing to the entire world. Now, this is a big shift from the way AI used to work in the United States from roughly 2012 to, say, 2022. The AI industry in the United States was pretty novel in that it was very open. They allowed everyone to scrutinize what they were doing. They sought feedback. In fact, the big innovation that led to the development of ChatGPT, for those who don't know what ChatGPT stands for, it stands for Generalized Pre-trained Transformer. Pretty sure that's right. Generalized. It's either general or generalized pre-trained transformer. And that transformer part of it was actually an innovation that was developed at Google. So OpenAI basically took an idea from Google because Google had published openly a paper on transformers. I think it was in 2019. I don't remember the exact year, but it's a paper on how attention is really important. It doesn't matter what the paper's about. The point is, it was all done very openly. And because Google shared openly what it had done, OpenAI was able to create ChatGPT. Contrast that with today, with ChatGPT 4.0 and 4.5 and o1, Gemini 1.5 and 2.0. All of these models are incredibly closed. You're not seeing research being published openly. You're certainly not seeing the source code being published. And other than Facebook, which did release its source code behind its foundational AI model, Llama, almost all these companies are shrouding everything they do in secrecy. So this reminds me a lot about the difference between vegans and animal rights activists and factory farms, right? Vegans and animal rights activists, we try to be as open as possible. In fact, this is the theory behind Open Rescue. We don't hide anything we do. We want to be completely transparent. Whatever defects we might have, you're going to see them, because every time we do an open rescue, every time we do an investigation, frankly, every conversation I have, I'm open to anything. I'm open to everything. I want that feedback. I want people to see exactly what we're doing because we feel like we can defend what we are doing. In contrast, the factory farming industry literally criminalizes it when people see what's happening behind their closed doors, right? And we've had ag-gag laws passed across the country. I went to 2 different states, North Carolina and Utah, to directly challenge those ag-gag laws that made it a crime, made it unlawful for someone to just take a photograph inside these factory farms. So as unfolded in the AI industry will unfold in the food industry because of how transparency leads to change. And DeepSeek, because it was transparent, 2 things happen. One is, over time, over the past couple of years, even as a lot of the other big AI companies are shrouding everything in secrecy, They're publishing all the results on GitHub. They're publishing all the results on kind of open access, peer-reviewed scientific journals. And that means they get better very quickly. The other thing that happens, though, with open source is they have immense credibility, right? One of the reasons the stock market dropped and so much investment is now shifting to China and away from the United States is because they openly published the results. They showed exactly how they achieved what they achieved, and that gave them a lot of credibility. So I think vegans and animal rights activists need to learn this too, and we are learning this. A few decades ago, a lot of the activism we did was underground. A lot of us silenced ourselves and didn't openly talk about what we believed. And we thought, well, you know, the world's not quite ready for this. I can't say what I think. I can't show what I actually did because, you know, the world's not going to accept what I have to say or what I would like to do, whether it's rescuing animals or advocating for animal rights and veganism. That's wrong. That's completely wrong. I think to actually create change, we have to be open because it does two things. One is it allows us to refine our messaging and even our beliefs with time. DeepSeek, by constantly publishing its results, showing the entire world what it was doing, would get lots of feedback. And that feedback would let it improve. And over a relatively short amount of time, I think the company launched in 2021, maybe it was 2022, forgetting the year. It went from being non-existent. The company wasn't even based in AI. It was based actually initially in finance. It overtook all the world's greatest AI models with a tiny amount of resources. That's the power of openness. When we're open, we get feedback, we improve. But the other thing about openness is openness creates credibility, right? When we're open about our work, not only do we get criticized by the industry, criticized by the media, criticized by other vegans and get better with time, but because we're open, we have immense credibility. I can go to a journalist and say, look, I spent, a week at Smithfield Farms or Smithfield Foods in southern Utah. They say they're not using gestation crates. I did not see a single mother pig outside of a gestation crate. And guess what? The New York Times will believe me because I'm open. I give them every single minute of footage. I'm able to answer every single question they ask. Maybe not well, but I can answer, and I'm willing to try and answer all their questions. And the result is you have immense credibility. And that's what happened with DeepSeek. There are a lot of models out there that are very closed. DeepSeek is an open model. And because when all the investors, all the software engineers, all the scientists opened up that cover, they saw the inside of what they were doing and realized, oh my God, there's only 2,000 AI chips. They only spent $5 million and they're able to deliver these sorts of results. That was part of the reason the company has been so credible. So we've got to learn from this. We have to be transparent. Transparency drove DeepSeek's progress. It can drive our progress too. So point number 2, how did DeepSeek change literally the global face of the economy is diversity. So, and by diversity, I don't mean DEI. I don't mean, like having certain number of women or people of color, whatever the merits of that approach are. The diversity we're talking about with DeepSeek is intellectual diversity. And because one of the reasons DeepSeek was able to achieve such tremendous progress and such incredible results with far fewer resources is an architecture called a mixture of experts. So with a typical AI, you basically have one big blob. It's like the big monoculture, the big unimind. And you pump in the tokens, basically the language, the query, the prompt, and that goes through the entire neural network, this massive network. You can imagine it like a human brain, just a bunch of different neurons all linking to each other. And the output is one big, one output from this one big unimind, this one big blob, right? And the innovation that DeepSeek created was what's called a mixture of experts. Instead of having one big unimind where everyone kind of thinks about the same thing, believes the same thing, outputs the same thing, instead, when you have an input, say a question like, is veganism true? Do animals have rights? What DeepSeek does is it splits its neural network. It's almost like it's taking if you imagine every neuron in the neural network was like a different person, it basically takes all the different people and splits them up into different subject areas, different expertises, a mixture of experts, and has each of them process some component of it. So imagine you're asking, do animals have rights? DeepSeek is figuratively basically going to part of its network and saying, okay, you guys are the philosophers. You give me your answer to this question. Another part of the network might be the biologist, and it'll ask the biologist, what do you think about this question? Another part might be the neuroscientist, and it'll say the neuroscientist or the computer scientist or whatever, or even the animal rights activists. So it it not only has a large number of distinct aspects of its software that are basically distinct experts, but the real innovation that DeepSeek did was it massively increased the total number of experts. Instead of just having a small number of experts, they had a large number of experts that were synchronized with these shared experts. And the exact architecture is not that important. Honestly, I don't understand it fully myself because I'm far from being an AI expert. But the basic idea is an extremely important one, that if you're going to get to right answers, if you're going to deliver outputs, which just mathematically, logically are superior to the outputs that other people are creating, you need diversity of thinking, right? And the problem with a lot of activism and frankly, the American left is we don't have that. We are a big unimind, whether it's Black Lives Matter or Me Too or Gaza, we all are required to have the same belief, even factual beliefs. You're not allowed to have different facts. If you observe something different than what other people observe, you're not allowed to say it. And if you do say it, you're probably going to be punished for it, right? This is a great recipe for failure. And DeepSeek shows the beauty and the value of having a mixture of experts. So one of the most fascinating things about this is what DeepSeek is doing literally with an artificial intelligence, just these sets of neurons that are split into different subsections and that develop expertise in different areas, whether it's mathematics, language, art, coding, you name it, is that when you look at the history of human civilizations and what civilizations are most innovative, or when you look at the history of individual human innovators and what makes them most innovative, it is diversity. So a lot of the greatest breakthroughs in science have been at the intersection of different fields of knowledge, right? We talk a lot about intersectionality, but too often when we talk about intersectionality, we talk about intersectionality of identity rather than intersectionality of thought. And what matters when it comes to both civilization and individual level breakthroughs is that civilizations that bring together lots of different minds, that allow lots of different people to mix. This is why cities are so powerful. There's research from a Harvard economist named Ed Glazer about how innovation is driven by cities, because cities are basically these huge clusters of people from many different perspectives who come together, share their knowledge, and lead to breakthroughs. But even at the individual level, you see lots of the top scientists and innovators in the world situated at the intersection of various fields. So, for example, one of the fields that I was very focused on when I was in graduate school is a field called behavioral economics. It's now led to multiple Nobel Prizes. Behavioral economics is essentially the intersection of psychology and economics, and it's led to huge breakthroughs in understanding not just the economy, but individual human choices. Another example is the most recent Nobel Prizes in physics and biology. Virtually all the Nobel Prizes in those fields are people who have an astonishing number of different expertises. So Demis Hassabis, one of the founders of Google DeepMind, won the Nobel Prize in biology most recently. And he has worked in everything from game development to neuroscientist to software engineering to artificial intelligence. This is someone who is the intersection, almost the living embodiment of the intersection of almost laughably diverse areas of knowledge. So if we are going to succeed as animal rights activists, we need to maintain that same diversity. The great thing is we have this. If you look at the vegans out there, the vegans don't look the same, they don't think the same, they don't come from the same fields. Almost everybody who defends factory farming is a rural, typically white farmer, right? They all go to the same schools, they all think the same way, they're all pretty conservative, they all have the same mindset. That means they cannot solve problems the way we can. In fact, when you look at vegans, you've got Buddhist monks in Taiwan. You've got tech futurists in the Bay Area. You've got students who are at places like UC Berkeley or Stanford thinking about the future of food technology. And then you got old hippies who sing Kumbaya and don't want to hurt animals. There are so many different bodies of knowledge that are part of the vegan community that it gives us an incredible strategic advantage. But the key thing is you have to tap into that. Too often, we, even as vegans, don't expand our connections. We don't go out there, and if you're a futurist, plant-based food entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, you don't go meet the ratty punk kid who's doing direct action, and vice versa, right? And what DeepSeek shows, and what the research on innovation shows, is it is those intersections. It is the mixture of experts, the mixtures of expertise that lead to genuine breakthroughs. This is how DeepSeek, using a very small amount of resources, a relatively small neural network, was able to basically smash all of its competitors in the United States. And we as vegans and animal rights activists can do the same. All right, so third thing that is fascinating about DeepSeek is purpose. If you're trying to create change, you must be driven by purpose, not profit. And what's pretty fascinating when you read about DeepSeek is the founder is this Chinese guy. I'm forgetting his name now, but even though he started in finance, he kind of got super rich and decided, I'm not that actually focused on money anymore. I made a lot of money. I was in finance for a little while. I'm like a super rich billionaire type dude. Now I just want to make progress. Like I just want to see the world's best AI model. I want to see this breakthrough in intelligence that seems like this amazing technological moment in human history, not just Chinese history, American history, but human history. And so there have been a number of interviews by DeepSeek engineers who now work in other companies. Some of them are US citizens who say like, yeah, this dude doesn't care at all about money. He's like, we never even talked about money. We just wanted to make progress. We wanted to do something that was amazing. And this is, you've seen this as kind of a shift in the US AI industry, right? So as a lot of these AI products have commercialized, so again, think about a company like OpenAI, which developed ChatGPT. A lot of their foundational researchers, including this guy, Ilya Sutskever, who were originally just kind of pure researchers, driven by a desire to do something great with the technology, to just figure out how we can actually create a genuine artificial general intelligence. They all left the company. And the amount of resources, the amount of compute being spent on research versus just making a product that people buy, there's been a massive shift, right, towards commercialization, profit-seeking behavior over just these fundamental research questions. And lo and behold, what happens? Like almost immediately after this shift happens, AI plateaus. We don't see the same progress. So there have been a number of articles come out in the last few months quoting people like Ilya Sutskever, quoting people like Yann LeCun, the founder of Facebook AI, and the winner of a Turing Award, which is basically the Nobel Prize in computer science, who've all said something's happened to AI development in the United States. It's not increasing. There's no breakthroughs. We're seeing a plateau, which, obviously is a threat to the American economy and frankly to American security, because if the CCP and the Chinese government overtake the US in AI could be the most important technology in human history. And we're falling behind. We're not seeing growth. And a big part of that is we're not intrinsically motivated to do great things. Instead, people are too focused on making dumb products to make people click and buy stuff, right? That doesn't work. And this is not just about AI. It's a broader finding in social scientific research and in the philosophy of learning and science is that it turns out when people are intrinsically motivated, and organizations and entire civilizations are intrinsically motivated, in other words, they're motivated to do the thing, to achieve the thing, because they think the achievement itself is important, not because they're hoping to get someone to click on something and subscribe or click on an ad and you get a couple cents from the ad. They are much more creative. There have been these fascinating experiments where experimenters will basically give people a task and try to describe to them why the task is intrinsically rewarding. So it could be something like silly, like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. And they can frame the task as, this is going to be really fun. You're going to enjoy this. And you're going to learn so much from this. And then the people work on the Rubik's Cube. And there's another treatment where they'll say exactly the same thing, but also say, hey, by the way, if you do this well, we'll give you $1. And one of the most amazing results from this research is that when you offer people money for a creative task, they do less well. Because the parts of your brain that are open, that are curious, that are joyful, that are playful, kind of shut off when you have an instrumental motivation, when you're focused not on the intrinsic value of what you're doing and your intrinsic desire to achieve the result that you're trying to achieve, but rather some sort of transactional or instrumental goal, just trying to make money. Can't innovate, right? So what does that tell us about animal rights and factory farming? Well, in the history of animal abuse, I've never met anyone who's intrinsically motivated, who, if they were not paid, would open a slaughterhouse or a factory farm. Who wants to sit in the piles of filth and feces and death that exist in every factory farm in the country? Who wants to sit in a slaughterhouse wearing one of those crazy hazmat suits, slicing 170 chicken throats every single minute? Every single minute. Nobody wants to do this stuff, right? They have to pay people. And they have to pay people a large amount of money. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that's paying people. It's literally like importing people from other countries because we don't even have enough people, even if we pay them in this country, willing to work in slaughterhouses and factory farms. So we literally have to take poor people from other countries, pay them wages that are sometimes 10, 100 times higher than what they're getting in their home country to get them to do the work. In contrast, veganism and animal rights is driven entirely by intrinsic motivation. By far the most effective activists, and the vast majority of activists I know, are not only not getting paid what they should get paid on the market, but they're usually paying to do this work. They're either taking a huge salary decrease, or in cases like my own, just are giving up their salary entirely. I've never been paid as an animal rights activist. I don't need to get paid as an animal rights activist. I just believe in the work. And not only does that give us a huge economic advantage, because obviously, it's pretty advantageous to our organization that I don't need a salary to work for the animals, but it also changes the dynamics of our problem solving. Literally, the parts of the human brain that light up when you're intrinsically motivated are the parts that invite curiosity and openness and playfulness and joy, right? All these things that I enjoy about animal rights activism, that I'm motivated to do by animal rights activism, will never motivate someone to defend factory farming. They're all paid hacks, and that means they won't make breakthroughs the way DeepSeek has made breakthroughs. So those are the 3 points. One is, if we want to innovate, if we want to have the sorts of impacts that DeepSeek has had relative to the AI industry in the United States, we have to be transparent and open, right? Be more open, because being open allows you to get feedback and signals your credibility to the world. Second, we've got to seek diversity. We need to take advantage of the fact that there are people from all walks of life who are part of the vegan movement. Instead of shutting ourselves off from them and staying in our own little ideological echo chambers, we have to go and seek out people who are diverse and even try and work together. That's exactly what DeepSeek literally engineered into its artificial intelligence. And finally, we have to be driven by purpose, not profits. We have to realize there's incredible value in doing the work we do, even if there's no instrumental motivation, even if we never get paid, even if no one ever pats us on the back. It's just beautiful to rescue animals and do this work to help animals be released from a life of torment. I'm super interested in your thoughts. We're in the midst of fundamentally reshaping the Substack and the podcast, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, please rate and subscribe. You're probably going to see things change up a little bit. More content like this that's focused on some subject rather than conversation. Still going to have some conversations, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Do you like this content? What do you like about it? Was this too remote from our typical subject matter? Let me know. So that's all I have to say for this week, or I should say for this Tuesday. Thanks to all of you for listening. Until next time. We don't have to hurt animals. You can protect them. We don't have to kill them. We can care for them. And that's who we're meant to be, right? That's who we are when we're at our best. We're caring for each other and for the other living beings of this earth and not hurting them.